Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another episode. Welcome back to the Underground. This is episode number 7, and how much more fitting than to make this episode about 7th Tachyon. Before I talk about 7th Tachyon and talk about its implications to the format, I kind of want to give a preface of what this episode is about to be. What I'm going to do in this video, in this episode rather, is summarize Maliss and their position in the format, summarize how the deck plays, summarize the interactions that people are making with this deck, and talk about stuff that you should be doing with or against the deck. I've already had past episodes where people were asking me if I can do a thorough combo guide and a thorough counter guide to Maliss and what you should be doing against it. And I think I've done a little bit of a PSA in the past few episodes, but I kind of want to make a more thorough one while also transitioning into the role behind 7th Tachyon, because this card is going to play a very significant role in the TCG. But without further ado, let's begin. So, right now, what you see in the screen, these are the most common played hand traps that we've seen in this format. You're probably going to see this combination of hand traps in most meta and rogue decks at the moment. Like right now, the pure Rizio list plays around 3 to 4 of these 5 cards in multiples. And the thing about it is, it's not that these cards are bad against Maliss, but when it comes to Maliss, this deck is known by having a plethora of extenders. And most of these extenders play through these 1-to-1 interactions. The most effective hand traps right here in the screen are Fuwalos and Nibiru. And it really just depends on the specific amount of extenders that the Maliss deck has. Let me show one example. Let's see if I can find it. So what I'm going to do here is show you like what you should be doing as a Maliss player and what you should be aware of if you have those one-on-one interactions against the Maliss player. So we're going to Underground for Dormouse, Dormouse for Rabbit. We're going to pause it right here. So Rabbit setting a trap card is really important. If you have those one-on-one interactions like Veiler and Imperm and Ghost Mourner, you should try to stop the White Rabbit, because White Rabbit is what gets you to your trap cards. Maliss's win condition, at least part of it, involves setting their signature trap cards. If GWC06 or MPT07 are in rotation alongside Whitebinder, the Maliss player has a significant advantage against the opponent when it comes to interacting with them through in-common interactions that are themed within the archetype. So stopping White Rabbit, it should be very important. And there are one disclaimer I want to give here. Try to do this when you have another way to stop the deck from comboing off. Just stopping the Rabbit won't be enough, because eventually they'll get to Whitebinder, and Whitebinder can just set the GWC06. Now, you're probably thinking, why do I just not wait for Whitebinder instead of just stopping Rabbit? The reason I'm bringing up Rabbit and not Whitebinder is because most people who have extenders are going to set 06 with White Rabbit, and they're going to transition into the Whitebinder line instead of the Red Ransom line. Let's say you stop this White Rabbit. We're going to keep playing here. There are two ways to go about this. If you have no extenders in your hand, you're going to go for Splash Mage, and Splash Mage will transition into White Binder. However, we do have the extenders in our hand, so we're just going to summon Link Decoder. So we're going to summon Backup Administrator. This card comes out in Alliance Insight, and this card is a really big deal for Maliss because it allows you to combo off through common interactions. This card even allows you to combo off through Nibiru, through an early Nibiru, because you can turn Nibiru into Link Spider, and Link Spider is a Cyberse monster summoned from the extra deck. In here, we have two ways to go about it, since we already used Dormouse and we already used Rabbit. That's another PSA I'm going to give. If you're the Maliss opponent, be aware of how many Maliss names have been already being used while comboing off. Being aware of what names have been used, it could be pivotal on the way you interact with your opponent. To this day, and that's no offense to Maliss players, not many Maliss players know how to use their resources properly and sequence their plays when it comes to using their names in rotation. That being said, we've already used Dormouse and we already used White Rabbit, so we're probably going to send Chessy Cat to the graveyard. And all these three names are going to become either White Binder or Red Ramson. So, if we heard what I said earlier about the 06 interaction, White Binder is the right play, because White Binder 06 is the combination that you want with Maliss. You want those two cards in rotation before comboing off, because that's going to become your safety net through hard cards like Nibiru. That being said, we don't have 06 in rotation, so there are two ways of going about this. We're going to pick the Red Ramson line, which summons back Link Decoder, and the Red Ramson is going to add. Now, important. Let's say you have this combination, or at least not Fualos, but at least the other ones. We'll talk about Fualos a little bit afterwards. If you are the player who have these hand traps and you're interacting with your opponent, don't stop Red Ramson. Stopping Red Ramson is not going to do enough, even with Nibiru, because they can just combo extend and transition beyond that. And I'll show you an example. Let's say you hand trap them here. There's nothing that's stopping them from going to SP Little Knight, and then SP Little Knight to banish the Red Ramson, and then Red Ramson coming back and Red Ramson banishing either Marsh Hare or Dotscaper. Pre-Alliance Insight, Dotscaper is going to be the summon. If it's not Dotscaper, it's going to be Chessy Cat, because this is the third Maliss name that is in our rotation. But if that's not the case, we're probably going to go back to Marsh Hare. Since we already showcasing you the combo with Backup Administrator, we're probably going to show you Marsh Hare a little bit afterwards. But for now, we're just going to summon Dotscaper. So Marsh Hare goes back to our hand, or goes back to the deck. So, important. Pre-Alliance Insight, this is a board you should be aware of if you can stop them with this combination of cards. Probably right after this, there's not a lot they can go for. However, post-Alliance Insight, this is going to become more important, because let's show you what you can do with this Underground. This copy of Underground is going to banish Maliss in the Mirror. And Maliss in the Mirror becomes another extender. Because what Maliss in the Mirror is going to do is it's going to banish the Chessy Cat, and it's going to add us the Marsh Hare. The Chessy Cat gets summoned, and there's just way too many cards for your opponent to like interact with you, or you being the opponent to interact with. Like they can SP Little Knight, dodge the Red Ramson, they get them back. If they hold the March Hare for long enough, they can use the March Hare in another instance. This Chessy Cat can banish the March Hare and it's going to get them 2 new cards, and those 2 new cards can become 2 new extenders. And the March Hare just comes back. So, what's going to be the second choke point for Maliss? White Binder is going to be the second choke point, but I want to give another disclaimer. The banish from graveyard effect is not the effect of White Binder you should be stopping. The effect of White Binder you should be stopping is the one that sets a trap card. The reason why stopping the first effect of White Binder is not important is because there's still March Hare to worry about. And if it's not March Hare, it could be a Bestial. And the Bestial can punish you like in the next turn. That being said, we're going to keep comboing off, and that's not going to be our summon. Firewall Dragon could be an option, but probably the most common option right now is going to be Nightmare Griffin. Nightmare Griffin and White Binder into the Abawaku, and then Abawaku to bring back the Griffin. If you get hand trapped enough times, this is the combo to go to, because your opponent has already exhausted a lot of resources, and it's very rare to see your opponent have a perfect combination of hand traps as well as board breakers that can play through a Bow and Griffin while still having a play starter with their engine. If your opponent let all this combo go through, you're going to see this probable end board alongside 1 or 2 of the Maliss trap cards. And who knows, even Maliss in the Mirror as an interaction. So the other option, and this option is post-Alliance Insight, is you're going to link these 3 into the Echo Talker Agnister. And this card is a problem. This card is going to bring back the Ramson, bring back the Binder, and if you get hand trapped twice, there are no more trap card interactions, but there are interactions with the Echo Talker Agnister, and that's not even counting March Hare. So, yeah, these cards are not enough for Maliss. If you already have figured it out. That being said, let's talk about other hand traps. These hand traps are not the more common ones in the main deck, but these are ones that could be effective or not as effective. Let's talk about Perulia first. Perulia, it really depends on what build of Maliss you're facing. If it's the Bestial build, as well as the post-Alliance Insight build, Perulia is really strong, because if we go back to our replay, March Hare, backup Agnister, as well as Bestials are already multiple summons from the hand. So, and if we count Wizard Agnister, this is another summon from the hand. So, yeah, Perulia in Post-Alliance Insight is going to be very effective. Pre-Alliance Insight is not as effective because most of Maliss summons are not gonna be from your hand. Most of them are going to be from their banished and from their deck. That being said, that's where Most Charming Meowth comes in. This card is really popular right now because Maliss existence warrants the playability of this card. This card is just as strong as Fualos and just as strong as Perulia against Maliss. So we'll talk more about Meowth when we talk about the heavy hand traps. But for now, let's focus on the other ones. Droll and Lockbird is not as strong Post-Alliance Insight, it could be because of backup at Nister, but pre-Alliance Insight, Droll and Lovebird really does nothing to Maliss, because if you saw the Maliss combo that we did, most of this went through almost no searches. We've only added with backup, and we only added with Red Ramson. And Red Ramson adding is optional because there's still the route of the White Binder instead of the route of going for Red Ramson. So it's really sad to say that Droll and Lovebird is not good against this deck. And this is a new problem that arises in the format, because against Ryziel, Droll and Lovebird is really strong. Not only that, but Droll is also really strong against Mocharmies as well. And this warrants the popularity of this card. Also, Mitsurugi being part of the format makes Droll and Lovebird very important as well. However, against Maliss, Droll and Lovebird is not that effective. So, let's talk about Dominance Impulse. As you already know, both Maliss and other rogue decks like Crystron and Fire Kings are playing this card. And this is one of the more powerful hand traps. If we go back to the combo here, I'll say that Dominance Impulse is really strong because it can stop Actod adding Nister from summoning from the graveyard. It can stop White Binder's effect when it comes back from the banish pile, as well as any Maliss name for that matter, but I think White Binder is the most important one. If you can find a way to stop both of Binder's effects, the one that retrieves itself from the banish pile, as well as from the grave, the one to set a trap card, then you're pretty much set against Maliss, because these are the most strongest interactions in the deck. So that's the important thing about Dominance Impulse. If we talk about Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, this card stops WCG06, and this card stops Binder's effect from banishing from the graveyard. This also stops Bestials, and this also stops Marsh Hare. So if your deck can afford to play this card, you should actually play this card. Not only that, but with Mitsurugi becoming more popular, as well as Fire Kings and Blue Eyes, the Blue Eyes White Dragon deck, I think Ghost Bell is going to be short-handedly becoming more close to a staple this format. If you're not playing Ghost Bell, you should really consider it. The only way you would not be considering playing Ghost Bell in your deck is if it inflicts with Dominance Impulse, and even then I would make the argument of you playing Ghost Bell. I think Ghost Bell is just as important as Ash Blossom this format, and I haven't seen enough people play it. Now, let's talk about the current war that is happening between Maliss and the Maliss opponents. Throughout this format, you've seen the Maliss deck adapt with a plethora of different engines. The Pesky Bestial build, the Striker build, the Engraver build, the one with just flexible with 14 hand traps. You've seen Metal Tronus become a staple extender in this deck as well. But our Maliss opponents have also been adapting. We've already talked about Mocharmy Meows. We talked about Lancia and Chaos Hunter. The cards we haven't talked about as much in the past episodes are Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, Burial from a Different Dimension, part of Acquisitiveness. So what these cards do against Maliss is, one, it makes White Binder not a blowout card anymore. One of the strongest interactions Maliss has is White Binder's banish effect. Like, just having it banish multiple names, including like your other Maliss Link monsters, is one of the strongest plays that it has against your opponent. If you have a way of stopping that from resolving, you should be fine against Maliss. And that's where all these cards come in. uh, Fantastical Dragon Phantasmary does not stop this interaction. However, it gives you enough draws where you could draw maybe enough post-side cards, like really extensive board breakers, to push through your opponent's interactions. Acquisitiveness is a lot more riskier than Burial from a Different Dimension because this can get Ash Blossomed, and this requires exactly 3 banished monsters, while Burial can be up to 3. Now, this is the part where 7th Tachyon comes in. Let's talk about 7th Tachyon. So, this card is going to be really strong in this format, and the main reason for that is because some of the most common side deck cards, like for example Artifact Lancia, can be tutored with that card. Most Maliss opponents are main decking Lancia in the OCG at the moment, and as far as Ryziel goes, it is a searchable card by 7th Tachyon. Now, let's talk about another anti-Maliss tech that probably a lot of people don't know about, and that one is Denko Sekka. Denko Sekka can also be played in the Ryziel deck, and it can be searchable by 7th Tachyon. So what does Denko Sekka do against Maliss that is so important? If you've seen here, you see these trap cards. These trap cards are Maliss's main form of interaction against your opponent, outside of the common cards like the Bestials and the Akkad Talker Administer, as well as Nightmare Griffin, etc. So, by having access to Denko Sekka, you pretty much force your Maliss opponent to use their trap cards early. And that's really good, because them using their traps early means you no longer have to worry about Whitebinder and 07 being interactions against you. This is not a surefire answer against your opponent, but it's something that Maliss players have to be aware of, because this interaction does exist. For the people against Maliss, this is a really good tech card you should be considering. I haven't seen Ryziel players talk about this at all, so I'm bringing it up to light. 7th light, 7th Tachyon, pun intended, for those tuning into this underground episode. So I think that's it from me. I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. I kind of wanted to make a PSA for Maliss players that are learning about this deck and like learning the ways around it, while also transitioning to this card. Yeah, I think this is going to be the last Welcome to the Underground episode for a little bit. Probably the next one will be like right after YCS Las Vegas, or until our next Forbidden Limited list, whichever comes first. Stay tuned, keep practicing, and keep dueling.